It's time to fire this thing up.
Welcome aboard ShipShape TV Essentials. This is your port of call for the most impactful upgrades, expert advice, and hands-on solutions from seasons past. This episode is proudly brought to you by SureHold, because anything worth doing is worth doing bright. From cleaning to protecting and perfecting, SureHold has everything you need to keep your boat shining. Don't just go boating, go showboating. Now, let's hoist anchor and set a course for another exciting episode of ShipShape TV Essentials.
Thanks for tuning in to ShipShape TV. I'm John Greviskis, and welcome to America's favorite boat improvement show. We're going to be covering a variety of projects today. We're going to start off by changing out a rub rail on a boat. After a few dock crashes and mishaps, it tends to get a little ratty. Then we're going to be installing a hydraulic jack plate on a boat, and if you've ever wanted to fish the backwaters, you're going to love this project. Matt, what else are we going to be doing?
We're going to show you how to maneuver your boat out of a tight spot at the fuel dock using just a spring line and the momentum of your boat. And then we're going to test one of the hot new boats on the water from a leading manufacturer.
And finally, we're going to show you how to prep and fair your hull, making it ready for paint the environmentally friendly way. Get ready for a bunch more great ways to make your boat shipshape. The first project that we're going to be covering today is the replacement of this rub rail on this 1988 26-foot Intrepid. Nice boat. Let me show you the layout of this vessel. It's a 26-foot walk-around with a nice-sized cabin packed with a lot of creature comforts. The boat has been rigged to fish offshore and comes complete with a full Birdsall aluminum tower, an upper station platform, and outriggers. She's experienced a few dock crashes over the years, so it's time to replace the rub rail.
We've hauled the boat out of the water in order to get a better look at how this project is done. But by no means is this a necessity. I've changed many rub rails while the boats were still in the water.
This is a flexible vinyl rub rail, and basically how it works is kind of like a rubber band. You attach it to the hull in a few key locations and then stretch it and snap it into place. The tools needed for changing out this type of rub rail are a cordless drill, an 1/8-inch drill bit, a No. 2 Phillips bit, a putty knife, a caulking gun, and a hacksaw. Let's get started.
The first thing we need to do is get rid of this old rub rail, and it's usually held on by a number of stainless steel screws, which in this case are hidden by this rubber insert. Now, we're going to need to get this out of here.
Now what we need to do is remove all the fastening screws, and it's attached to the hull about every 6 inches, so we've got our work cut out for us. Now typically, you'd have some silicone sealant here underneath the old rub rail, and you need to remove it with a putty knife. You want to be careful, you don't want to damage your gel coat. Right here we just have a little bit of sealant that's in this joint. I'm going to go ahead and just clean this up.
Next, I want to fill all the existing holes with this high-quality silicone to make it watertight. Then I want to make sure to seal the hull and deck joint.
Next, we'll attach the rub rail to the bow using No. 10 1.25-inch oval head stainless steel screws. Once we had the rub rail where we wanted it, we pre-drilled for the screws using a pilot bit. We put some sealant on the screw threads to ensure a watertight seal. Then we attached the rub rail to the corners at the stern, again using a couple of screws on each side just to hold it. Then snapped it into place and fastened it every 6 inches, again drilling pilot holes.
for the screws so that we wouldn't chip or crack our gel coat. Finally, we cut the rub rail to length, making sure that it overlapped, allowing for shrinkage, and butted the two ends together. Now the last thing we'll need to do is install the rubber insert, and let me give you a trick to help you out. Take a bucket of soapy water and put the entire insert in it, and as you pull out the insert soapy and wet, that'll help you slide it into place. Now if it doesn't go right in, use a rubber mallet. There are several types of rub rail available for your boat. You have aluminum, stainless steel like this over a rigid vinyl, and then you have the flexible vinyl rub rail. Now, one of the nice things about flexible vinyl is it absorbs shock when you hit a piling or a dock, minimizing damage. And one thing you want to make sure when you're installing this type of rub rail is you want to let the material warm up during installation, either by letting it sit out into the sun or by putting it into a bathtub with some warm water if you live in a cooler climate. Let me get you acquainted with the ShipShape TV degree of difficulty meter. It's a tachometer that we've animated to give you a visual aid, letting you know how challenging a particular project is. Now, if a project revs out between 0 and 2,500 RPMs, we feel that any boat owner can accomplish the task. Then we have projects that rev out between 2,500 and 5,000 RPMs. They can still be done by the do-it-yourselfer if you have the right tools and a little bit of time. And then we have the more challenging projects that would rev out between 5,000 and 8,000 RPMs. These should be left to the professionals. Now this particular project, changing out the rub rail, revs out at 3,000 RPMs. Again, meaning that the do-it-yourselfer can do it, but you need a friend.
What tool is this? Is it A, a fairing board, B, a hand plane, C, a hydroplane, or D, a level? The answer's coming up right after these messages. What tool is this? If you guessed A, a fairing board, you're correct. Resembling the profile of a planer, a fairing board is used to sand large areas of the hull sides of boats. Now, if you want to fish in really shallow water, make sure you take notes on this next segment as John and Matt install a hydraulic jack plate on a flats boat.
This is one of the new Hydra-Sports that's out in the market. And what a lot of guys are doing is they're putting something called a hydraulic jack plate on the back of the boat. And what the hydraulic jack plate allows the boat owner to do is raise and lower the engine vertically. Now this is great when you want to get into skinny water or you want to fish the flats or scream around the bays.
And speaking of bays, we've moved the film crew out to Tampa Bay to take a look at a situation that's occurring on the grass flats. This is called a prop scar, and they're all over this area. And how they got there was from the lower unit of a boat that was too low in the water and destroyed the fragile seagrass. Sometimes it takes up to 5 years for this to grow back.
Now, if they could have raised that engine, it would have eliminated the problem altogether. So that's why a lot of guys are installing these hydraulic jack plates on the boat, not only in the Tampa Bay area, but all over the world. Let's get into some of the tools that we'll need for today's project. A cordless drill, a number 2 Phillips bit, a 1/4 and a 3/8 drill bit, utility knife, wire crimpers, various sockets and open-end wrenches, and a good polyurethane sealant.
We've removed the engine cowling and located our 2 lifting ears on the engine block. Then we've moved in our engine lift. Now, if you don't have the proper equipment for this project, leave it to the professionals. Now we're going to attach our lifting chains, and then we're going to take some tension up on the lift to release some of the tension off the transom so we can get our through bolts out. These are the bolts that hold your engine onto the transom, and there are 4 of these bolts. We'll need to remove these first. Now with the engine released from the transom, we can move it back to give us some room to install the hydraulic jack plate. Now notice that we've not disconnected any cables or wires whatsoever.
This is the hydraulic jack plate that we're going to mount on the boat. And notice the bolt pattern. It's the same as the one that came off of our engine, and it's a standard BIA pattern. Now, it's very important that you reseal your transom thoroughly, and I'm going to use a good quality polyurethane sealant to do this. And I'm going to start off by putting a thin bead around the bolt hole, and then I'll follow the perimeter of the jack plate. Now that I have the outside of the transom sealed, I want to make sure that I go ahead and seal the inside as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay a thick bead on these mounting bolts as well. Now, let's see if this baby fits. Matt, you ready?
I'm ready, John.
Okay, now, don't worry about the squeeze with the silicone sealant. We can come back and wipe that up.
Next thing we want to do is we want to mount our hydraulic pump assembly. And we want to determine a location in the boat that's relatively dry, but still close to the jack plate. Now for that reason, we've chosen this location on the inside of this storage locker. Now I've already pre-run my wires through the rigging tubes, and I've also pre-drilled my holes in the wall of the locker. Now it's very important to mount this assembly in a vertical position. I'll connect the long hose to the bottom of the jack cylinder and to the upside of the pump assembly. Then I'll connect the short hose from the top of the jack cylinder to the downside of the assembly. Now we're just about done.
The jack plate that we're installing today is manufactured in Ruskin, Florida at Bob's Machine Shop. Bob Eisnogel, its founder, explained to me that not only do they assemble these jack plates on the premises, but build most of the components as well, all to help boaters get better performance and help the environment. We'll be right back.
Why wax when you can pro polish? This premium protective wax from SureHold can be used on virtually any non-porous surface, such as cars, boats, RVs, home equipment, and more. Pro Polish is scientifically formulated to repel water, provide a deep, high-gloss shine, and protect surfaces from the effects of UV rays, salt water, and other harsh environmental elements. Unlike traditional waxes, Pro Polish contains no talc or fillers, which means easy wipe-on, wipe-off performance that doesn't clog up microfiber towels. Enjoy a new way to protect with SureHold's Pro Polish. SureHold, clean and simple.
Welcome back to the show. We're in the process of installing a hydraulic jack plate today on ShipShape TV. So far, we've removed the engine from the boat, we've mounted the plate, and then we hooked up all of our hydraulic hoses to the cylinder and pump assembly. The next thing we need to do is hook up our control switch.
I've chosen the throttle handle to mount our control switch. This will give us functional usability of the jack plate while at the helm. Next, I neatly ran the wires under the console and connected them to the pump assembly wires. Then, I connect my battery leads to power up the unit. White to positive, black to negative. Now, if an overload occurs, the pump has an ambient breaker that'll reset itself automatically.
I filled the reservoir with some hydraulic fluid to the max line with the plate in the down position, and that's a good tip. Whenever you're putting hydraulic fluid into a system, you want to make sure that the cylinder is down instead of in the up position. That could be real messy. One other thing I want to show you is we have a grease fitting over here, and after several hours of operation, it's a good idea to give it a shot or two of some good waterproof grease. And for trouble-free operation, you'll want to do that about once or twice every 6 months. The only thing else we have to do is mount the engine back to the boat, and we're good to go.
Using the ShipShape TV degree of difficulty meter, installing a jack plate revs up to be 5,500 RPMs, mainly due to the need of an engine lift. Now, if you're in the market for a new boat, feast your eyes on this beauty. John, show us the vessel.
Just mention the word unsinkable and one name comes to mind, Boston Whaler. This is the new 1998 26-foot Outrage. It's a center console engineered to catch fish. The hull is formed using Whaler's Unibond construction technology that features a closed-cell foam core that's completely sandwiched in fiberglass. There are no stringers on this boat. The construction process creates a one-piece uniform hull that's extremely durable. The company boasts that even when completely swamped, the engine power heads remain above water. The design is part of Whaler's AccuTrack series, which utilizes lifting strakes and a reverse chine to give the boat an extremely dry ride. The spray is diverted down into the water instead of up into the boat.
A lot of thought and planning went into the layout of the Outrage. From the integrated bow pulpit with anchor roller to the molded-in swim platform / engine bracket, the boat comes complete with lockable rod storage. It has a huge integrated 30-gallon recirculating live well that's positioned a little differently outside the transom, not taking up valuable cockpit space. It has a flip-out stern seat, a leaning post, and a molded-in lockable electronics box.
One of the things we were looking for from a design standpoint was accessibility to key essentials, such as bilge pumps, fuel filters, and battery switches. We want to let people know that the boat they're buying can be easily serviced. The 26 Outrage scored high in this category. I had the opportunity to talk with Nick Bischoff from Boston Whaler on why so many people are considering the boat.
John, the 26 Outrage was specifically designed to tackle offshore conditions. We call it the AccuTrack hull design. That provides for a nice smooth ride, and the chines provide for a lot of lateral stability and quick recovery in a following sea.
The boat we tested was set up with twin Mercury 225 EFI engines. According to the factory, fuel burn at cruise, which is 25 knots, is 20 gallons an hour. But according to our portable flow scan meter, it was more like 22 gallons an hour. Considering the burn times distance traveled, it still wasn't bad. Top end was 48 knots, fuel capacity is 200 gallons, giving a realistic cruising range of 225 nautical miles. Our speed to planing test, the boat did an outstanding 2.8 seconds.
The boat did well when backing down. Little or no water came into the vessel and did nicely on our standard rotation test. One thing I noticed while at rest was the boat sat a little to the starboard side, about a ½ inch, but soon learned that this was intentional in design to make up for the weight of the live well that's offset on the outside of the transom. Ingenious.
When we designed the 26 Outrage, we had the whole family in mind. For Dad, it's a great fishing machine. For Mom, it's got a high freeboard up in the bow area, an enclosed head in the console, plenty of seating for the kids.
On a rating scale of 1 to 5 props, John and Matt rate this boat a 4-prop vessel, making the 1998 26-foot Boston Whaler Outrage a must-see at the next boat show, or from your Boston Whaler dealer. ShipShape will be right back. You're watching ShipShape TV, and the following operational technique is being brought to you by Pennzoil Marine, a new wave of protection, formulated to protect your boat's engine and your engine warranty.
Have you ever been at the gas dock and been sandwiched in by other boats? Chances are you probably had to wait till they were done before you could get your boat out of there. Well, not anymore, because today we're going to show you a really neat maneuver called a spring line pivot.
Most fuel docks have lines so you can tie off at every piling. Take the one that's closest to the center of your vessel and tie it off to your bow cleat tight.
Next, with your wheel and engine in their centered position, slowly engage your boat into forward. You'll notice the spring line will become tight, pulling you against the dock, and now the stern will begin to pivot away from the dock. Continue in forward until the boat gets about 45 degrees out. Then, slowly shift into reverse. Have the person on the bow release the spring line. 2 notes of caution. Always look before backing into traffic, and if you have a bow pulpit or bow sprit, be careful not to hit the dock with it.
Remember, boating's easy and it's fun because you can do it.
The preceding operational technique has been brought to you by Pennzoil Marine, a new wave of protection, formulated to protect your boat's engine and your engine warranty.
Well, here we are back at our home base, Seminole Boatyard, and the next project we're going to tackle is the sanding and fairing of the hull of this classic 1966 20-foot Bertram Moppy. So far, we've removed all the hardware from the boat, and we've taken the interior out.
What's currently on the hull is a coat of Emron paint, and the kind of primer that's underneath, well, we're not sure exactly what that is, but nonetheless, we need to start the sanding process and remove both the paint and the primer. But before we start, let's talk about some environmental concerns. We have a tarp underneath our project area to catch any of the paint particles that may fall to the ground and would eventually end up in the groundwater.
When you get done with the project and you just roll it up and dispose of it properly, we're also going to talk about a special type of sander, and this sander has a Velcro type paper that attaches to it. And notice it has holes in it. What these holes are for is to actually evacuate the toxic paint, and it will hold it right into this cylinder, and again, we can dispose of it properly. It's pretty neat stuff.
And speaking of toxic, we really want to wear some safety gear here because paint is very toxic. And you'll notice we have special suits and gloves so that we don't absorb any of those toxic particles. Now, I'm really serious about this, folks. You need to wear the safety gear because this stuff's nothing to mess around with.
You've got safety glasses, you've got respirators, and we've got some of the tools that we're going to need for today's project. We've got our different various grit sandpapers, and we've got some different fairing blocks and fairing boards, and then we have some of the fillers that we're going to be doing when we're fairing in the hull. Pettit puts out a pretty good one. This is actually a Bondo product, and it's kind of like the Bondo that they use in the automobile industry, how they fill in dents and stuff. But this is for the marine application. It's watertight. 3M also puts out a product, and we've got some various sanding sponges. Matt, why don't you tell us what a sanding sponge is for?
Well, this sanding sponge is actually to save the wear and tear on your hands. You actually put your sandpaper beneath the sanding sponge and use it to sand radiuses and curves. This will save a lot of wear and tear on your fingers.
Let's get started with the project. I'm using 80 grit paper first. What I like to do is sand vertically up and down the entire freeboard, moving my way slowly around the hull. Next, I'll sand east and west, this time in sections again, starting at the bottom and working my way up. Then I'll switch to 180 grit and start all over again. What I'm doing here is circling all the low spots in the hull. I want it to be just perfect. And then I'll come back and fill it in with some marine filler. There are several choices when looking for a fairing compound. Pettit puts out a pretty good one. It's a two-part epoxy format. And then we have another one over here. 3M puts this one out. It's called a premium filler, and it's used in conjunction with a cream hardener. Now, when you're mixing this stuff up, guys, what you're looking to do is you don't want to mix it on a cardboard surface. You don't want to mix it on something that's porous. Instead, use something that's non-porous. The cream hardener will absorb into that cardboard, and it's going to change your ratio of mix. So I'm going to put this onto a little piece of old starboard that I had laying around, and that's plenty of filler. And now what I want to do is knead my cream hardener before I add it in. And again, just read the directions for the amount of hardener you need to put in, and then we'll mix it up. And then I've got about maybe 10 minutes, 15 minutes to work with this stuff, depending on the temperature. Now, when you're filling your low spots, you want to work the material in two directions. This is to get any air bubbles out. And again, this will kick in about 20-30 minutes. We can go ahead and sand. This is a fairing board, and I want to show you guys a little trick on how to fix some low spots on your boat and where to detect them. Take a pencil and go over an area with squiggly lines back and forth. Then grab the fairing board and pull and sand. And as you can see, right here, this is my low spot. I need to get some more of that filler and make it flush.
Using the ShipShape TV degree of difficulty meter, this project revs out to be 4,900 RPMs, meaning that the do-it-yourselfer can accomplish this task with the right tools and some time. We'll be back in a flash.
The SureHold Soft Brush. Perfect for use on boats, cars and trucks, decks and patios, and even windows. Specially designed split-end bristles hold more soap and water for effortless and effective cleaning. Built-in safety bumper protects surrounding surfaces from accidental damage. The included 48-inch threaded wooded handle is sturdy, lightweight, and strong. Proudly made in the USA, the SureHold Marine Mate Soft Brush is the worldwide standard in deck brushes. SureHold. Clean and simple.
Welcome back to the show. The hull of the Bertram's really starting to take shape, and we've been showing you a bunch of projects today on ShipShape TV. The first one was how to replace your rub rail. Matt, give us a quick review.
Attach it at the bow, pull it tight and attach it at the stern, snap it like a rubber band for a good fit with no ripples or puck marks at the screws.
Great. How do we install that hydraulic jack plate?
It's not that hard, but you need to order the video. Ask for show number 302 and you can contact us on the World Wide Web at www.shipshapetv.com or call us on a landline at area code 561-626-1439.
Finally, when fairing a hull of a boat, you want to make sure that you comply with all the environmental laws that are out there. We've got a second left, and I want to show you a new product that's coming out of the ShipShape TV cool new product cooler. And this week, we're going to take a look at a product called TefGel. And basically what TefGel is it's ground up Teflon, And Matt, where do you use this stuff around the boat?
Anywhere you have two dissimilar metals in contact with each other to prevent galling and galvanic corrosion, good idea is a push rod tube in one of your trim cylinders. And I have a tube of this in my toolbox.
Suggested retail price is $10.95, and it's available in most of the major marine centers, or if you're looking for where you can get it in your neighborhood, feel free to call us at ShipShape TV. We'll be glad to tell you. We're about out of time for this week's show, but until next week, guys, keep your boat shipshape.